Ethan had never imagined that a routine exploration mission would lead him to the most extraordinary place he had ever seen. The small human ship he piloted skimmed through the outer atmosphere of Zythera, a planet only recently discovered by human astronomers. It was known for its strange energy patterns and unusual magnetic storms, but the detailed reports about its inhabitants were sparse, almost mythical. The moment Ethan landed, he realized Zythera was unlike anything humans had ever seen. The sky glowed with swirling colors like ribbons of light dancing across the horizon. The ground shimmered faintly as though the very soil was infused with energy. Towering crystalline structures reflected the lights of the sky, casting kaleidoscopic patterns on the smooth streets. Ethan's heart pounded with both excitement and apprehension. He had been sent to gather data, observe, and retreat. But curiosity drew him further into the heart of a city that seemed alive with a quiet hum of energy. As he wandered, he noticed gardens suspended in midair, glowing with plants that shimmered with radiant colors. Birds, or creatures like birds, flitted between floating flowers, leaving trails of luminescence in their wake. Ethan's attention was caught by a sudden disturbance. A hovercraft, sleek and silver, careened out of control, narrowly missing a hovering garden. Inside, a figure struggled to regain control. Without thinking, Ethan sprinted toward the crash site, activating the emergency stabilization equipment in his backpack. The craft toppled dangerously close to a group of floating walkways. Ethan lunged forward, using the device to anchor the craft and slow its fall. The door of the craft opened and a figure stepped out. Ethan blinked. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin glowed faintly in the light, and her hair shimmered with strands of gold and violet. Her eyes were wide and bright, filled with a mixture of fear and surprise. She was dressed in a flowing suit that seemed to move as if it were part of her, reflecting the ambient light of Zythera. "Thank you," she said, her voice melodic and commanding at the same time. "I am Princess Lyra." Ethan swallowed, unsure how to respond. I'm Ethan. I'm just a human explorer." Lyra's gaze softened, but her eyes remained sharp, scanning him as if trying to read his very thoughts. "A human in here? This is highly unusual. Humans are not expected on Zythera so soon." Ethan shrugged, feeling suddenly self-conscious under her intense scrutiny. "I didn't mean to intrude, I was curious." Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. "Curiosity is rare among humans, it seems. Most stick to their safe distances. You, however, risked yourself to save me. That is unusual and admirable." Before Ethan could process the weight of her words, a faint shadow moved behind Lyra. Another figure emerged, younger but strikingly similar. Her hair was darker, her expression more reserved, and her eyes held a quiet intensity. This was her sister, Saris. She looked Ethan over with cool appraisal, silent yet clearly measuring every detail. Lyra noticed her sister's attention and gave a small, knowing smile. "Ethan, there is something you must understand. Our people have customs that may seem strange to humans." Ethan nodded, unsure of what to say. "I'm willing to learn." Lyra studied him carefully, then spoke with surprising decisiveness. "Your bravery and your respect for life have impressed me. You have proven yourself worthy of a bond with me, a bond that is rare among humans and Zytherians alike." Ethan froze. He had expected gratitude, perhaps a reward of information or hospitality, but the word bond made his heart race. "A bond?" he repeated cautiously. "Yes," Lyra said, stepping closer. "I am offering you marriage. You will become my mate, my partner, and my protector. This is not a decision I take lightly, and neither should you." Ethan's mind raced. Marriage? This was impossible. He had come as an explorer, not as someone seeking a lifelong commitment, especially not with an alien princess whose customs he barely understood. I don't know what to say," Ethan admitted honestly. This is sudden." Lyra's smile remained gentle. "Yes, but it is necessary. Our alliance with humans will strengthen if one of your kind becomes part of our royal line. You have already shown qualities that are rare: courage, intelligence, and honor. These are the traits we value most." Before Ethan could respond further, a voice cut through the air, a softer yet commanding voice, filled with authority. "Human, you cannot just marry her." Ethan turned sharply. Saris had stepped forward. Her eyes locked on him with an intensity that made him feel both challenged and nervous. "If you marry my sister, you must also take me," she continued, her tone unwavering. "It is not merely tradition. It is a demand of my family and I will not be ignored. Ethan blinked, feeling the weight of her words. This was beyond anything he had prepared for. Take you? He asked slowly. What do you mean? Sirius's expression remained steady, almost regal. On Zythera, bonds of this kind are not always exclusive. If a mate is to join our royal line, all necessary members of the family may share in this bond. My sister may wish for you, but I cannot accept her choice without my participation. This is not a threat. It is custom, and I will not allow tradition to be broken. Ethan felt dizzy with the enormity of the situation. He had come to observe, to learn, maybe to make friends, but now he was being asked to make a commitment that spanned cultures, lifetimes, and species. His mind searched for a logical response, a way to understand what he was being asked. Lyra stepped forward and placed a calming hand on Sirius's arm. Do not frighten him. This is how our people ensure balance. You have proven yourself, Ethan. Now you must consider whether you are willing to accept the responsibilities that come with this choice. Ethan took a deep breath. He looked at Lyra, who regarded him with warmth and trust, then at Sirius, who watched him with cautious expectation. Somehow he understood that this was not a simple test of courage. It was a test of his integrity, his patience, and his heart. I don't know if I can do this, Ethan admitted. I've never faced anything like this before. I don't even know your ways fully. Sirius's gaze softened slightly, but her resolve did not waver. Then you must learn quickly. For if you are to bond with us, you must understand us, our culture, our values, and the responsibilities we carry. You cannot simply act on impulse or desire. Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. I will try. I don't want to disappoint either of you. Lyra smiled, placing her hand lightly on his shoulder. That is all we ask for now. Honesty, courage, and respect. The rest will follow in time. As the sun-like lights of Zythera shifted in the sky, Ethan felt a mix of awe and anxiety. He was no longer just an explorer. He was a participant in something far larger than himself. His choices here could shape not only his fate but the future of an entire civilization. Sirius stepped closer, studying him as if reading the very fibers of his character. Ethan realized that despite her stern demeanor, she was giving him a chance to prove himself. And if he succeeded, he might not only survive this strange, alien culture but also find a place where his courage and humanity mattered in ways he had never imagined. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt that his actions could truly make a difference, not just for humans, but for a civilization light years away, one filled with wonder, challenges, and unexpected bonds. As night fell over Zythera, Ethan stood between two alien sisters, feeling the weight of an impossible choice. The palace glowed softly behind them, filled with secrets, customs, and a world that would test every ounce of his strength and wisdom. He had no idea what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. His life would never be the same again. And so, under the alien stars, the unexpected story of a human, two alien sisters, and a bond that defied understanding began. The next morning, Ethan woke in a guest chamber that seemed to float above the palace gardens. The room shimmered faintly and light poured through translucent walls, reflecting the energy of Zythera's unique atmosphere. He could hear the distant hum of machinery mingling with the soft rustle of the floating gardens outside. It was peaceful, almost otherworldly, yet his mind was restless. He had agreed to learn about the customs of Lyra and her people, but he had not yet begun to understand the full weight of Sirius's demand. The sisters had not pushed him to decide immediately, but every glance, every word reminded him that this was not a simple alliance. It was a choice that could bind him for life. Ethan rose and prepared himself. He knew he needed to approach this situation with respect, curiosity, and caution. After a light breakfast served by hovering attendants who moved with perfect grace, he was escorted to the palace hall where Lyra and Sirius awaited him. Good morning. Ethan, Lyra said, her smile warm and comforting. Today we will begin your orientation. You must understand our customs, our ways of thinking, and our expectations. Only then can you make a fully informed decision. Sirius remained silent, her piercing gaze fixed on him as if measuring the depth of his understanding already. Ethan could feel the weight of her attention. It was not intimidating, but it demanded honesty. Their first lesson began with an introduction to Zythera's unique social structure. Unlike human societies where individuals often act independently, Zitherans live in intricate networks of trust and mutual obligation. Decisions are rarely made by one person alone. The harmony of the group is considered paramount. You will need to understand, Lyra explained, that our family bonds are not merely emotional. They are functional, political, and spiritual. A bond with one of us cannot exist in isolation. It affects all who are connected to us, especially family members of importance. Ethan nodded slowly. So, by choosing to bond with you, I would also be taking responsibility for your sister? Saris's voice was calm but firm. Yes, I am not a rival. I am a guardian of balance. My participation ensures that the bond strengthens the family, not weakens it. Ethan's head spun. He had always considered marriage a matter of love and trust between two people. Here it was a web of obligations, expectations, and responsibilities that extended far beyond personal feelings. He realized that if he failed to understand or respect this structure, he could unintentionally cause harm. To help him understand, Lyra and Saris introduced him to the palace library, a vast space that seemed to stretch for miles. Floating scrolls hovered in midair, projecting images and holograms of Zythera's history, culture, and traditions. Ethan marveled at the intricate designs, the detailed records of generations, and the energy-infused artifacts that lined the walls. This library holds the knowledge of our people, Lyra said. You must learn not only our customs but also the principles that guide our decisions. Understanding these principles will allow you to act with integrity, even in difficult situations. Ethan spent hours absorbing the lessons. He learned about Zythera's rituals of commitment, where trust and transparency were tested through challenges of intellect, courage, and empathy. He saw examples of past leaders who had failed because they could not honor the balance between personal desire and duty. Each story emphasized the importance of understanding the needs of others, sometimes above one's own. By mid-afternoon, Saris decided it was time to test Ethan directly. She led him to a simulation chamber, where holographic scenarios were projected in 3 dimensions. In one simulation, he faced a choice between saving a group of citizens or preserving a critical palace artifact. In another, he had to navigate a negotiation between 2 alien clans, finding a compromise that satisfied both without undermining either. Ethan realized quickly that brute force or quick decisions would not succeed. Each scenario required patience, observation, and careful reasoning. He relied on human ingenuity, combining logic with empathy, and managed to solve each simulation successfully. Saris's eyes softened slightly, though her expression remained serious. You have potential, she said, but potential alone is not enough. A bond with us requires understanding our people's hearts, not just their minds. Lyra stepped forward and placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. You are learning quickly. That is encouraging. But the final test will not be simulations. It will be real choices made under pressure with lives and responsibilities at stake. Ethan's stomach tightened. He understood that this was more than lessons. It was a preparation for life itself on Zythera. Every action he took now would shape how the sisters, and perhaps the entire palace, viewed him. Later, he was invited to the palace gardens where Lyra and Saris were waiting near a suspended platform of glowing flowers. Lyra spoke first. Ethan, there is an event tonight, a ceremonial gathering of the court. It is an opportunity to meet other members of our society and observe interactions that will challenge your understanding of our customs. Saris's tone was direct. You will be watched closely. Every word, every gesture will be noticed. How you conduct yourself in front of our people will determine whether trust grows or falters. Ethan swallowed, feeling the weight of the expectations. I understand, he said. I will do my best. As night fell, the ceremonial gathering began. The palace hall glowed with light, and the court members moved gracefully, floating slightly above the floor. Ethan noticed their movements were synchronized, almost as if they were part of a single living organism. Conversations were polite, but eyes were sharp, observant, and critical. He was introduced to a number of nobles, scholars, and warriors. Each interaction tested his ability to adapt, to listen, and to respond appropriately. One noble asked him a complex question about human strategy and diplomacy, while another challenged his moral reasoning in a hypothetical crisis. Ethan relied on honesty and clarity, answering with respect and thoughtful consideration. Throughout the gathering, Lyra watched him with a mixture of pride and hope. Saris, meanwhile, remained composed but scrutinized him from a distance. At one point she approached, her expression calm. "You are adapting," she said quietly. "But remember, it is not enough to survive. You must understand. To truly bond with us, you must embrace our values, not merely imitate them." Ethan nodded, recognizing the truth in her words. "I want to understand. I know it won't be easy, but I am willing to try." Saris gave a faint nod and stepped back, allowing him to continue interacting with the court. Ethan realized that earning trust was not about instant approval. It was about patience, observation, and consistent behavior. As the night drew to a close, Ethan found himself standing beside Lyra on a balcony overlooking the city. The lights of Zethra glowed beneath them, reflecting in the crystal structures and floating gardens. The air was filled with a gentle hum, almost musical in its rhythm. "You have done well tonight," Lyra said softly. "You have shown curiosity, respect, and integrity. These are qualities that matter more than strength or wealth." Ethan looked at her, his mind still processing the enormity of his situation. I want to do the right thing," he admitted. "But sometimes I don't know if I can. Your customs, they are so different from anything I've ever known." Lyra placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "That is why you are here, Ethan. Not to know everything immediately, but to learn, to grow, to understand the responsibilities you may one day accept fully." Ethan nodded, feeling a mixture of awe and determination. He was beginning to realize that this was more than a test. It was a chance to prove himself in ways he had never imagined. As they stood together, Saris joined them silently, her gaze on Ethan calm but assessing. For the first time he felt a connection with her, not just a sense of challenge but a quiet respect. It was clear that the sisters' bond was complex, but it was also strong, and he could see that if he wished to be part of their lives, he would need to earn not only their trust but also the respect of the society they represented. The night air of Zithra shimmered around them, a reminder of the world he had entered, beautiful, complex, and full of unexpected challenges. Ethan knew that learning their ways, earning their trust, and understanding their customs would not be easy. But for the first time he felt a sense of purpose beyond exploration, the chance to make a real difference, to show the strength of humanity, and perhaps to forge bonds that would last a lifetime. And as the twin moons of Zithra rose in the sky, casting soft light on the palace, Ethan realized that his journey was only beginning. The choices he would make in the days to come would define not only his destiny, but also the future of the sisters, their people, and the fragile alliance between humans and Zithra. For now, he simply stood there between two alien sisters, knowing that the path ahead would test his courage, wisdom, and heart in ways he could not yet imagine. The days following the ceremonial gathering were filled with lessons, trials, and subtle tests. Ethan had begun to understand Zithra's customs, the responsibilities of bonding with the royal sisters, and the delicate balance required to earn their trust. But nothing could prepare him for the threat that was about to descend on the palace. One morning, alarms echoed through the crystalline halls. The soft hum of Zithra's energy shifted into a low, ominous vibration. Ethan, Lyra, and Saris rushed to the observation deck, where a panoramic view of the city revealed a fleet of sleek, dark ships emerging from the planet's outer atmosphere. These ships did not belong to the peaceful Zitharian allies. They were hostile rogue faction ships intent on striking the palace. "This is unexpected," Lyra said, her voice steady but tense. "They seek to destabilize our rule and prevent any alliance with humans." "We must act quickly." Saris's eyes narrowed. "Their strategy is chaotic but lethal. They do not understand Zitharan defenses, but they are relentless. We will need every advantage to protect the palace." Ethan's heart pounded. He had been trained in exploration and basic defense, not large-scale combat. But he knew he could not stand aside. If the palace fell, it would not only endanger the sisters but jeopardize any chance he had to prove himself. Lyra handed him a small device that looked like a combination of a tablet and a weapon. "This will interface with our defense systems. Use it wisely. Creativity and human ingenuity may turn the tide." Ethan studied the device, noting its complexity. It was connected to the palace's energy shields, weapons, and communication network. He realized that brute force would not win this battle. He needed strategy. The first wave of attacks hit. Rogue ships fired energy beams that ricocheted off the palace's shields, but their sheer numbers threatened to overwhelm the defenses. Ethan quickly identified patterns in their attacks, slight delays and predictable trajectories. He used the device to redirect shield energy to weaker points, creating temporary gaps in the attackers' formations. Human ingenuity, Saris murmured, a hint of admiration in her voice. She piloted a defense craft alongside Ethan's instructions, intercepting enemy ships with precise maneuvers. Lyra coordinated the palace's larger defense systems, issuing commands that synchronized perfectly with Ethan's adjustments. Together, they formed a seamless team. Ethan realized that his role was not to fight like a soldier, but to think like a strategist, combining human creativity with Zitharan technology. He rerouted energy to amplify countermeasures and even created illusions that tricked some of the enemy ships into colliding. Hours passed in tense, adrenaline-filled action. Despite their efforts, the rogue fleet pressed harder, targeting key areas of the palace. At one point, a massive strike threatened the central energy core. Ethan calculated a risky move. He redirected energy from secondary systems to reinforce the core, risking temporary failure in other areas. The gamble paid off. The strike was absorbed and the palace remained intact. Lyra and Saris acknowledged his quick thinking with subtle nods, their trust in him deepening. For the first time, Ethan felt a surge of confidence. He was not just a visitor. He was a crucial part of the defense. But the battle was far from over. A group of smaller, faster ships broke through the outer defenses, heading directly for the palace gates. Ethan realized they could not be stopped by technology alone. They needed human ingenuity in combination with Zitharan's skill. He devised a trap. Using the floating gardens as cover, he set up a series of energy nets that would capture the ships without harming their occupants. Saris maneuvered through the gardens, activating the nets at precise moments. Lyra coordinated energy pulses to confuse the enemy sensors. The plan worked perfectly. The rogue ships were ensnared and their attacks were neutralized. The palace remained safe and the fleet was forced to retreat, their threat temporarily halted. After the battle, Ethan collapsed in a chair, exhausted but exhilarated. Lyra approached him, her face glowing with pride and relief. "You have done more than survive today, Ethan. You have proven that human creativity and courage are strengths that complement our technology and traditions." Saris stood beside her sister, her expression softer than Ethan had ever seen. "You have not only thought quickly, but also respected the balance of our defenses. That is rare. Many before you would have acted recklessly. You acted wisely." Ethan exhaled, feeling a mixture of relief and amazement. The sisters had witnessed his ability to adapt under pressure, to combine his human ingenuity with their alien systems, and to act not just for himself, but for the protection of others. He began to understand that bonding with them would not just be a matter of ceremony. It required responsibility, courage, and an unwavering commitment to their people. That evening, the palace held a private meeting in the strategy room. Lyra and Saris wanted to debrief the battle and assess Ethan's reactions. Maps and holographic displays showed the paths of the rogue fleet and the palace's defensive responses. "You have done well," Lyra said again, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "But this is only the beginning. Challenges will come in many forms, political, cultural, and personal. You must be prepared to face them all." Saris's gaze was steady, almost searching. "You have shown skill, yes, but more importantly, you have shown understanding. You did not act out of fear or pride. You considered the lives at stake. That is what matters." Ethan realized that this experience had taught him more than any book or lesson could. He had learned the importance of observation, collaboration, and thinking beyond the obvious solution. He also understood the subtle dynamics between Lyra and Saris, the way they complemented each other, the way trust and respect were earned slowly but firmly. Over the next few days, the palace resumed its normal rhythm, but Ethan's role had changed. He was no longer merely an observer. He was an active participant in the sisters' world. He continued his lessons in culture and etiquette, but now he also trained in strategy, defense, and the unique skills required to navigate Zethara's complex society. One afternoon, Lyra invited him to a serene garden chamber, where water flowed upward through transparent tubes, defying gravity in the same way the floating gardens hovered outside. "Ethan," she said gently, "you have faced danger and proven yourself. But the greatest challenges are not always external. You must also navigate the hearts and minds of those you bond with. Understanding us is as important as protecting us. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. I understand. I know I still have much to learn, but I am willing to do whatever it takes. Saris appeared silently, her presence calm but commanding. We will continue testing your wisdom, empathy, and courage. You have done well in battle, but life with us requires more than skill in defense. You must understand loyalty, respect, and the balance between strength and care. The sisters led him through a series of exercises that combined strategic thinking with empathy. In one, he had to mediate a dispute between palisades over resource allocation. In another, he guided injured creatures safely through a complex floating garden maze. Each task seemed simple at first, but required careful observation, patience, and understanding of Zithran culture. Through these experiences, Ethan began to see the depth of the sisters' world. Lyora's warmth and openness were balanced by Saris's cautious wisdom. Together, they formed a system of checks and guidance that demanded not only respect, but also understanding. One evening, as the twin moons of Zithra rose high in the sky, casting soft light on the palace spires, Ethan stood with the sisters on the balcony overlooking the city. You have done more than we expected, Lyra said softly. Your courage, ingenuity, and willingness to learn have impressed us. You are beginning to understand what it means to bond with us and what responsibilities such a bond carries. Saris's gaze met his. Do not mistake today's success for completion. You have learned much, but the path ahead will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine. The next challenge will not only require skill but also heart and loyalty. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his role. He had come to Zithra as an explorer, uncertain and cautious. Now, he stood between two extraordinary sisters, having faced real danger and proven his worth. The stakes had grown higher, but he had grown as well, understanding the responsibilities, challenges, and opportunities that awaited him. As the city shimmered below and the stars of Zithra sparkled above, Ethan realized that his journey was only beginning. The bond he was forming with Lyra and Saris was more than a cultural experiment. It was a test of his character, courage, and heart. And if he could succeed, he would not only earn their trust but also find a place where his humanity mattered in ways he had never imagined. After the battle with the rogue fleet, life in the palace slowly returned to its calm rhythm. Yet for Ethan, calm was never simple. Every day brought new lessons, challenges, and subtle tests of his mind and heart. He had proven his courage in battle, but now he faced challenges of a different kind, personal, emotional, and deeply connected to Lyra and Saris. One morning, Lyra approached him in the palace gardens. The floating flowers glowed softly in the early light, and gentle currents of energy caused the petals to shimmer like glass. Ethan, she said, her voice calm but serious, you have demonstrated skill and courage, but bonding with us requires more than that. You must also understand our hearts, our fears, and our desires. Only then can trust be complete. Ethan nodded. I understand. I want to do everything I can to earn your trust and understand you both. Lyra smiled faintly and gestured to a pathway lined with crystalline trees. Come with me. Today your lessons will be more personal. Saris joined them silently, her presence measured and quiet yet commanding. You have faced danger and strategy, she said. Now you will face something equally important, understanding our people and ourselves. Observing is not enough. You must feel and think with care. Their first task took Ethan to the Hall of Memories, a chamber filled with floating orbs, each containing images, emotions, and experiences from past generations. Ethan was told to interact with them, to absorb lessons of loyalty, courage, and compassion. Each orb revealed a story, a leader who sacrificed personal gain for the safety of their people, a warrior who forgave enemies to prevent greater conflict, a ruler who listened carefully and made decisions that honored both tradition and innovation. Ethan moved carefully from orb to orb. He felt joy, fear, sadness, and hope as the stories unfolded. He realized that bonding with the sisters was not only about mutual respect, it required understanding the world they had inherited, the values that guided them, and the subtle wisdom that shaped their decisions. Later, Lyra guided him through a simulation of court politics. The holographic chamber projected complex scenarios involving resource disputes, political tensions, and moral dilemmas. Ethan had to negotiate and mediate, finding solutions that satisfied multiple parties without compromising principles. At first, he struggled. Human logic sometimes clashed with Zithran expectations. A decision that seemed fair from his perspective occasionally caused tension in the simulations. But with guidance from Lyra and subtle hints from Ceres, he began to see patterns. He learned to balance empathy with strategy, to understand both the practical and emotional consequences of his choices. "You are learning quickly," Ceres remarked quietly. "But remember, understanding is not simply about observation, it is about connection. You must see beyond what is visible." Ethan pondered her words carefully. He realized that he was starting to perceive the depth of their bond as sisters. Lyora's warmth and openness complemented Ceres's caution and wisdom. Together they formed a balance that required him to adjust, adapt, and genuinely care about the outcomes of his decisions. As the day continued, Lyra led Ethan to the floating gardens of reflection. The gardens hovered high above the city, with paths made of translucent material that seemed to stretch into infinity. Small creatures, luminescent and delicate, flitted among the plants, leaving trails of soft light behind them. "Here," Lyra said, "we test the heart. You must act not for yourself but for those you care about. Observe carefully and choose wisely." Ethan spent hours navigating the gardens, performing tasks that combined problem-solving with empathy. In one challenge, he had to guide a wounded creature to safety without disturbing the delicate plants surrounding it. In another, he needed to find a safe route for a group of younger beings while avoiding unseen hazards. Each challenge required careful thought, patience, and respect for life. Ceres watched him silently from the side, occasionally offering advice or subtle hints. Ethan felt a growing respect for her quiet guidance. While Lyra inspired him with warmth and encouragement, Ceres challenged him to think carefully, act responsibly, and anticipate consequences. Both sisters tested him in complementary ways, pushing him to grow beyond his limits. After completing the garden challenges, Ethan was invited to a private discussion with the sisters. They sat together on a balcony overlooking the palace city, glowing softly under Zithra's twin moons. "You have done well today," Lyra said. "You have demonstrated not only courage and intelligence, but also a growing understanding of our values. This is important, for bonding with us is more than ceremony. It is a lifelong commitment to respect, care, and balance." Ceres's gaze was calm but intense. "Your actions today have shown thoughtfulness and empathy, but the test is not yet complete. You must also face the challenges of loyalty and trust. How you respond to personal trials will reveal the strength of your character." Ethan felt the weight of her words. He had already faced danger, strategy, and cultural lessons. Now the sisters challenged him on a level he had never anticipated. The heart. How could he navigate feelings, attachments, and obligations without causing harm or misunderstanding? That night, an unexpected event tested him further. A minor energy disturbance occurred in the palace, small but potentially dangerous. Ethan immediately reacted, using his knowledge and tools to stabilize the situation. The sisters watched quietly, noting not only his technical skill but also his composure under pressure. "You handled that perfectly," Lyra said afterward. "Not all humans would act with such calm and precision. Your ability to think and care simultaneously is remarkable," Ceres added. "It is not enough to act bravely. You must act wisely, ethically, and with consideration for all affected. You have begun to demonstrate this. That is what we value most." In the following days, Ethan's connection with the sisters deepened. He learned to anticipate their needs, understand their perspectives, and navigate subtle social cues. Lyra shared her hopes and fears openly, while Ceres revealed her cautious wisdom in private moments. Together, they helped him grow, not just as a guest, but as someone capable of joining their world responsibly. One afternoon, Lyra took him to the palace observatory, a vast chamber filled with crystalline instruments that monitored Zithra's energy currents and the wider cosmos. "Ethan," she said softly, "you have learned quickly, but now you must learn to lead with care. Leadership is not about command alone. It is about foresight, compassion, and understanding the hearts of those you protect." Ethan spent hours observing the energy currents, learning to predict fluctuations and prevent potential hazards. He began to understand that leadership on Zithra required both knowledge and emotional intelligence. Every decision could ripple through the city, affecting lives, culture, and harmony. Sarge joined him silently, her presence calm and steady. "You are beginning to see the balance of power and care," she said. "It is subtle but essential. Remember, bonding with us is not just about ceremony or ritual. It is about embodying the values we hold dear: courage, wisdom, empathy, and loyalty." As night fell, Ethan reflected on his journey so far. He had entered Zythera as a human explorer, uncertain and cautious. He had faced danger, learned complex customs, and begun to earn the trust of two extraordinary sisters. He realized that bonding with them would require constant growth, awareness, and dedication. Yet despite the challenges, Ethan felt a sense of purpose he had never known. He was not merely surviving or observing. He was becoming part of something larger than himself. His courage, wisdom, and empathy mattered in ways that could shape the future of a civilization. Standing between Lyra and Sarge on the balcony, Ethan understood the depth of his journey. The bond they offered was not a simple partnership. It was a test of heart, mind, and character, and he was determined to meet that challenge, to honor their trust, and to prove that humanity could rise to meet even the most extraordinary demands. As the twin moons of Zythera illuminated the floating gardens and shimmering city, Ethan felt a quiet resolve. Tomorrow would bring new lessons, new challenges, and perhaps even deeper trials of trust and loyalty. But for now he simply stood there, knowing that he was growing stronger, wiser, and more connected with Lyra, Sarge, and the incredible world they called home. The journey was far from over, but Ethan had begun to prove himself in ways that mattered most. The sisters' faith in him was growing, and he knew that the next challenges would test not only his skills but also the heart that had already begun to belong to Zythera. And so, under the alien stars, Ethan continued his journey, learning, growing, and preparing for the responsibilities, dangers, and bonds that would define his life on Zythera forever. The days after Ethan's trials in the floating gardens and the observatory were filled with quiet preparation. Lyra and Sarge knew that the final stage of his journey would test not only his courage, intellect, and empathy, but also his heart. The sisters had watched him grow from a cautious visitor into someone capable of understanding their world and their values. Yet before any bond could be formalized, Ethan would face a challenge that combined all he had learned. One morning, Lyra approached him in the palace courtyard. The air shimmered with soft energy, and the floating fountains cast gentle light across the crystalline pathways. "Ethan," she said, her voice calm but urgent, "today you will face the culmination of your lessons. A situation has arisen that requires you to act with wisdom, courage, and empathy all at once. You will not only be tested on skill but also on loyalty and understanding." Ethan nodded. "I understand. I am ready." Sarge joined them silently, her gaze steady and serious. "This is not a simulation. Real consequences are involved. How you respond will show whether you are truly prepared to bond with us." They led him to a secure chamber where holographic displays showed reports of a nearby city threatened by a natural energy storm, a rare phenomenon on Zythera. The storm was growing unstable, and the residents were in immediate danger. The palace had the resources to help, but deploying aid required careful planning and coordination. Ethan was handed the control device he had used during the rogue fleet attack, now connected to emergency response systems. "You must coordinate the rescue," Lyra explained, "but do so without endangering our people or the city. Your decisions will have consequences, and you must act quickly and wisely." Ethan felt the weight of responsibility settle over him. Lives were at stake, and every choice mattered. He analyzed the situation, noting energy patterns, population locations, and environmental hazards. He began issuing commands, directing drones and energy shields to protect structures while guiding civilians to safe zones. Sarge monitored his actions, occasionally offering subtle hints or adjustments, but the decisions were entirely his. Lyra oversaw communication with city leaders, relaying vital instructions. Ethan realized that this challenge was different from the rogue fleet attack. It required not only strategy, but also compassion, anticipation, and clear judgment. As the storm intensified, Ethan encountered unexpected complications. A sudden surge threatened to destabilize a central energy conduit, endangering a residential area. He made a quick calculation and rerouted power from secondary systems, stabilizing the conduit and preventing disaster. His heart pounded, but he remained focused, knowing that hesitation could cost lives. Hours passed in tense coordination. Ethan had to balance speed with caution, anticipating both the storm's unpredictable behavior and the needs of the civilians. With careful planning, creative problem-solving, and collaboration with the sisters, he successfully guided the population to safety. The storm eventually passed, leaving minimal damage behind. Lyra and Sarge approached him afterward, their expressions a mix of relief and admiration. "You have done more than we expected," Lyra said. "You acted with wisdom, courage, and empathy. You did not simply follow instructions. You understood the consequences and acted for the greater good." Sarge's voice was calm, but firm. "This was the ultimate test of your character. You have proven that you can handle responsibility, make difficult decisions, and act with care for those around you. That is the quality we value most." Ethan exhaled deeply, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. He realized that he had not only demonstrated his capabilities but had also earned a measure of trust that went beyond words. The sisters' faith in him was no longer tentative. It was real and meaningful. Later that evening, the sisters invited him to a private chamber high above the palace gardens. The room was quiet, illuminated by the soft glow of energy streams flowing through the walls. "Ethan," Lyra said softly, "you have faced danger, learned our customs, understood our values, and acted with wisdom and care. You have proven yourself capable of bonding with us, not only in ceremony but in spirit." Sarge's gaze met his. "We have observed your courage, intelligence, and empathy. We have seen your respect for balance, your ability to act under pressure, and your consideration for all affected. These qualities are rare, and they are what we seek in someone who may share a bond with us." Ethan felt a rush of emotion. He had come to Zythera uncertain, cautious, and overwhelmed. Now he stood before two extraordinary sisters who had become mentors, guides, and something more. Keepers of trust that he had earned through effort and integrity. I don't know what to say," Ethan admitted. "I have tried to do my best to understand and respect your world. I want to honor your trust and show that I am worthy." Lyra smiled warmly. "Your actions have already spoken, Ethan. Words alone cannot convey the depth of your efforts. You have shown that humanity is capable of courage, wisdom, and compassion on a level that can complement our own ways." Sarge nodded, her expression softening. "Your presence has proven that humans can be trusted allies and partners. You have earned more than respect. You have earned a place in our lives if you choose to accept it." Ethan's heart swelled. He had faced tests that challenged his mind, body, and heart, and he had succeeded. Now the sisters offered him a choice, one that would change his life forever. I would be honored," he said finally. "I want to bond with you, to be part of your world, and to uphold the trust you have placed in me." Lyra reached out, taking his hand gently. "Then the bond is accepted, Ethan. But remember, it is not merely a ceremony, it is a commitment. You must continue to act with care, respect, and wisdom every day." Sarge stepped forward, placing her hand alongside Lyra's. "We will guide you, but you must also guide yourself. Trust, loyalty, and understanding are ongoing responsibilities. Today marks the beginning, not the end, of your journey with us." Ethan felt a profound sense of belonging. He had come to Zythera as a visitor, uncertain and cautious, but he now stood as a trusted companion to two remarkable sisters, bonded not only by ceremony but by shared experiences, mutual respect and understanding. Over the next days, the bond was celebrated quietly within the palace. The sisters introduced Ethan formally to the court, and he was recognized not merely as a guest but as a valued partner and ally. The court members observed his interactions, noting the respect, care, and wisdom he displayed. Ethan continued to learn and grow, embracing his responsibilities with humility and determination. He spent time with Lyra, understanding her warmth, vision, and hopes for the future. He spent time with Sarge, learning from her wisdom, careful thought, and protective instincts. Together, the sisters guided him, and he grew stronger, wiser, and more confident each day. One evening, as the twin moons of Zythera cast soft light over the palace, Ethan stood with Lyra and Sarge on a balcony overlooking the floating gardens. The city shimmered below, alive with energy and life. "You have become part of our world, Ethan," Lyra said softly. "Your courage, understanding, and respect have earned you a place not only in our lives but in the hearts of our people." Sarge's gaze met his, calm and steady. Remember that a bond is not a destination. It is a journey. Continue to act with wisdom, care, and loyalty, and you will find your place among us. Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had faced challenges beyond his imagining, learned to navigate an alien culture, proven his courage, and earned the trust of two extraordinary sisters. He understood that the bond was not simply a title or ceremony, it was a shared responsibility, a commitment to act with care and integrity every day. As he looked at Lyra and Saris, Ethan realized that he had found a new purpose, a new family, and a new home. Zithra was no longer just an alien world. It was a place where he belonged, where his actions mattered, and where his heart could grow alongside theirs. And so, under the glowing moons and amidst the floating gardens, Ethan took his place as a trusted companion to Lyra and Saris. The bond was no longer a question or a test. It was a living, breathing connection built on courage, understanding, and unwavering respect. Together they would face the future, united in trust, purpose, and friendship. For Ethan, the journey had begun as an exploration of a strange and beautiful world. It had evolved into a journey of the heart, a test of character, and a profound lesson in trust, courage, and the power of connection. He had proven himself worthy, and in doing so, had discovered a place where humanity could shine, not in conquest, but in care, wisdom, and loyalty. And as the night settled over Zithra, Ethan knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them not alone, but alongside Lyra and Saris, bonded, trusted, and ready for whatever the future might bring.